right. Welcome to this panel. I am excited to moderate this panel discussion, especially the fact that we've got our esteemed panel here to review how efforts have driven recent innovation in life science that are cost effective and timely. I cannot tell you how excited I am to be a part of this panel discussion and with some of the people that I quite frankly just admire and just the work that they do and the contribution that they make to this ecosystem. Before we kind of jump into it, just want everybody to just take a quick second to just say who you are, and then we'll kind of jump into some panel questions and really talk about why it's important to really talk about this discussion that we're about to have, and how do we contribute to the life science ecosystem here in the state of Georgia, which I think is probably one of the best place to build a startup, build a company, and just a great place to be, just great people here in Georgia. So I want everybody just to take quick seconds, and we'll start from Ann. Just tell us who you are really quick and what institution you represent from, and then we'll follow down the line, and then we'll jump into this discussion so this audience that's listening to us can walk away with some wisdom and some nuggets that they can take away back to their ecosystems.
Okay, my name's Ian Biggs. I'm the Director of Startups and the Director of Innovation District Programming at UGA. So I look after all of the commercialization into startups and also all the support service programming for the whole of UGA.
All right, thank you for that. So Courtney Law.
Hi, everyone. I am Courtney Law. I'm the Managing Director for Biolocity. We are an early stage funder for projects at Emory and Georgia Tech. And in addition to funding, we help with resources and education and connections to our ecosystem and the greater US. So happy to help and looking forward to the conversation.
All right, thank you for that, Courtney. So we got James Lillard.
Yes, I'm James. I'm a professor and a senior associate dean for research, innovation, and commercialization at Morehouse School of Medicine. In that latter role, I direct our tech transfer office that manages the disclosure of the discovery process and licensing technology and partnering with biopharma and others.
All right, thank you for that, James. And Christopher McKinney.
Hi, I'm Chris McKinney. I am Associate Vice President for Innovation Commercialization at Augusta University over in Augusta, Georgia, where we do tech transfer, patenting and licensing, startups, biobusiness incubation, innovation-based economic development, and so much more. Happy to be here.
Thank you for that, Chris. And Clifford Michaels.
Hi, I'm Cliff Michaels. I'm an Assistant Vice President for Research and the Director of the Office of Tech Transfer and Commercialization at Georgia State University. And I like to think of us as the place on campus where industry and innovation and research all come together and collide. And so we do a little bit of everything.
That's what's up. Thank you all for a quick introduction of yourself. My name is Nikhil Malicio, and I literally probably have 20 jobs here on this Zoom calls. It's interesting because I have a small role with Georgia Bio and a small role with Morehouse School of Medicine. And of course, I work at Georgia Tech as well. But I'm just excited about just to contribute and I think out of all those roles, serving is probably the most important part about that. So now that you all have gotten a chance to just get a quick introduction to all of us, so now we're going to kind of fast forward a little bit and jump into this. And so I just have a couple of questions for everyone, and then we'll kind of move into some open discussion. Is that okay with everybody? All right, good deal. So the first question that I have, and these questions are just basically just to kind of set the context for the conversation and help us to really drive us into a really meaningful conversation. I think all of you, like I said, just have tons of respect for you. You contribute to this ecosystem, and especially in life science here in Georgia. And I know everyone is just really interested to really hear what's on your mind. So my first question to you, Ann, is what does the support system look like to encourage your faculty to start thinking of entrepreneurship and supporting them to build strong relationships with industry? And for instance, and then what does it look like for spinning technologies out of your university look like? And what are some of the challenges that you may have or pros that you may have?
Okay. So there's just one thing that has surprised me recently. We're very lucky in that we just opened our new innovation hub on North Campus at UGA. And whilst we've had our own building before, this has made a huge difference. It's actually become the one-stop shop for everything to do with innovation, entrepreneurship, commercialization for everybody in the industry, not just life sciences, but all faculty. And around that building, we've actually moved a number of the support services that relate to all of our activities. So whether it's tech transfer or the Small Business Development Center, the New Media Institute, all of those are actually clustered around in the same physical area. So it's very easy for people to get lots of help very quickly. And even though we've been for a while in limited attendance, actually having that one building has made an enormous difference. So I'm very grateful for how that's occurred and the big impact it's had. So if I just look at faculty, sure, we tell new faculty, here's all the things we can do to help you when you've got all these ideas and so on. But in reality, the number one thing we do is we actually go and talk to faculty. When they've actually got an invention disclosure, or when they're coming up to one, we'll actually go and talk to them, and quite often in their own environment. So it makes it easier for them. And then we'll help them actually work out what the pathway is to commercialize whatever it is that they're coming up with. And you know, we've got to make it easy. Faculty have got a lot going on. It's a difficult time for faculty at the moment. So how do we make it easy for them? One of the things that we've been doing recently is encouraging schools to have their faculty meetings in our building. So I get to talk to all of the department heads and explain what we do, because one of the first things that happens with the faculty world is they go and talk to their department heads, and if the department heads don't know what we do, then that can be that can cause a bit of a roadblock. So all of it is about making it easy. So go see them, actually explain to them the very simple 4-step process we've got, and also how we can get them additional help, because for a lot of people this is the first time they're doing it. So it can sound worrisome. It can sound, it's not what they've been trained to do. So how do we help them do that? And so, like Chris said at the beginning, we provide all these services, whether it's mentors, bring in people who've actually been there, done that, whether it is funding assistance, help people get money from GRA, or we actually have picked up a grant in order to help people write their own SBIR grants. So we help them get funding. Most importantly, though, we help them understand what industry's needs are, because they may have the brightest idea in the world, but if it's not what industry really wants, we end up with a bit of a mess going on. Why is nobody interested in my great idea? Well, they've already got one, might be an answer. Right. So we help them with that. You know, one of the biggest things is they get worried about fundraising. How am I actually going to raise funding? And so we've got a lot of different levels of help we can give it in that process. And as an example, whether it's GRA, SBIR, or anything, or even VCs, the amount of funding that was raised last year by on-campus startups was 10 times what it was 5 years ago. So all of those programs are clearly working. We've got a whole load of practical courses. We've got 15 of them or so, but the big ones are I-Core that help with needs. Startup 101, which is bringing in people from outside to actually talk about, this is what we do. This is what's happened. Here are some of the things, here's some of the nasty cliffs I fell off in my journey. Let me tell you about how it's not really that nasty. And by the way, here's how you avoid it. They're really useful. And as I say, helping people with grant writing, because writing grants for commercial applications is different to research grants. We also, we have our own incubator. We've got about 30,000 square feet of space we can rent out, a lot of which is wet labs. So all of that just provides a really helpful no difficulty type of process. From the other side, from the industry side, when I used to run an R&D group and tried to go and work with universities, the hardest thing was actually finding the right person. Because I'd go on a tour and be told, yeah, I used to research in that, but I don't anymore. So you might want to go and talk to Fred down the corridor. And that was difficult. So what we're trying to do with industry is make it easy for them as well, provide a one-stop shop type of approach where if they come in with a need or if they want to articulate their needs, we will go and find the relevant people for them to talk to. They don't have to walk the corridors of confusingly laid out buildings and find where somebody is hiding behind an unmarked door. We'll actually go and do all of that.
Right.
So and clearly the biggest thing, as I said before, is that we help industry articulate their needs to us so that we can meet their needs and not say, you know what, we've got something that's similar, but not quite. So maybe you need this instead. That's not particularly helpful for them. And so I think the final thing I would say is we have a number of people in my group that have not only worked in industry, but have also been in startups. Mm-hmm. So we've actually seen both sides of this and can actually translate, because the words used in those two environments mean very different things.
Right.
So overall, I think UGA over the last 4 or 5 years has radically changed its support system and is very keen on startups and commercialization, to the point where about 5 or 6 years ago, we had 30-some projects in our pipeline for commercialization, and we now have about 125.
Wow.
So there's a lot of, and because we've got such a big number,
right,
it's produced a really useful ecosystem, so that when people do hit these, Mike Tyson said, everyone's got a plan till they get punched in the face. Yeah. So once you get that punch in the face,
right, there's
actually people around who've seen that before, who've experienced it and say, it's okay. In 2 weeks' time, you won't remember it happened. And so having a place where you've got a one-stop shop, where you celebrate the successes and you create the ecosystem, I think that's the best you can do for actually getting all these interesting projects out into the commercial world.
Yeah, thank you for that. And that is so well detailed. And just thinking about 100 and something odd organizations that are ready for commercialization, that's a huge number, right? When you think about, commercialization, I mean, you're lucky if you get, a few out the door a month or year at some universities, given that it's such an arduous process and getting stuff from ideation to commercialization, and let alone getting it to market. But there was something you said, which I think is actually a really good segue into Courtney, what industry needs and what industry wants. And so as I pivot to you, Courtney, and I think about this, is that you sit at the intersection of two universities creating and generating significant research. So what are some of the proven methods that work for you engaging with Emory and Georgia Tech to foster the successful launch of life science companies? And how are you seeing some of the same things that Ian is seeing with these activities, and provide support and help in helping these startups actually, instead of just being in the lab, but actually like getting this actual to market?
Yeah, absolutely. No, great question. What I've seen just across Georgia is there are just so many great institutions pumping out so much great innovation. And like you mentioned, I do sit between Emory and Georgia Tech in the only department that's actually joint between the two institutions. So it's great to get to wear both my Emory and Georgia Tech hat, depending on what day it is. But there's a lot of great ways to start to foster that life science ecosystem on campus. And I like to break it down in a few different ways. One, just staying engaged. So staying engaged with the different resources that are across campus. There are a lot of different programs, like Ian mentioned, just at that focus on different subsectors. Some are student focused, some are faculty focused, some are specifically for like medical devices, some are for clinical trials. So staying abreast of what the different programs are, and then how do we all kind of fit together? Because I think, especially in my Biolocity hat, we fund maybe 5 projects per year, but we see 70 projects. So there's a lot of how do you triage people to the right place, and help them like actually start to surface some of the programs that maybe they don't know exist. To follow along with that, again, it's more than just knowing about these programs, but really working together. So where are our limitations versus other people's limitations, and how do we try to form some kind of synergy, or again, that pipeline of programs, so that, you know, if I can't help you in this position, or I've helped you to a certain point, how do I get you to that next point? So specifically in our program, we do work with other programs across campus, whether they're student focused to help with market research, or working with the tech transfer offices for, hey, how are we thinking about licensing strategy going forward, and how do we help our teams meet those needs too. This has been mentioned a few times, like mentors and external consultants. How do we still make those connections, not only internally, but externally? Right. And I think the other thing that I would say that helps foster this environment it's really just keeping abreast of what research is going on. So some faculty know that we exist, some faculty don't, some faculty know certain parts of what we do. But the more I talk to either faculty leadership, faculty themselves, going to different department meetings, or I've seen a lot of departments creating positions that you can go and talk to of, hey, you have one-on-one interactions with these different faculty members. Maybe they're not thinking about commercialization, but they have really interesting technology that we can work with. And by sitting as a part of that resource, you can become a connector as well. So I can count, well, I can't count as many times as, you know, we'll have a faculty member saying, I have X idea, but I need whatever, a chemist. Do you know any chemists that can do this? Like, well, I do know a chemist because they just came in last week with X solution. Right. So I think part of our role is to create those connections, because we try to be that wheelhouse where people come and share their ideas. So those are my top things if I think of how you can foster like this life science startup ecosystem within the institutions.
Yeah, no, that's really good, Courtney. When I listen to you and Ann talk, you know, it's capacity, right? It's capacity, it's having the resources, it's having access, and then making sure that pathway is clear, and making sure that you're building healthy resources and an ecosystem around faculty and around the students, so that it's clear on, you know, here's your idea. It's great that you're working on this great new novel thing in the laboratory, but here's this other resources that can really help you get to market. I would be remiss if not to ask James, and, you know, this is a good pipeline into the question I want to ask James. And today I'm going to wear my favor to the right Morehouse hat today. And just because I just, you know, close to a lot of some of the stuff that James is working on there. And I just love the initiative of being inclusive and innovative in just all the things that they're doing at Morehouse. And I think that Morehouse is truly poised and positioned to not only be a success, but to be a leader in so many different areas. And it's so important that as we talk about this ecosystem and this innovation ecosystem throughout Georgia, that Morehouse needs to be at Morehouse School of Medicine, needs to be in each and every one of those conversations as we continue to build. So my question to you, James, is what are some of Morehouse ecosystem and innovation building efforts, and how could our counterparts here in the room maybe leverage or learn from some of those things? And what are some of the things that are important that are on your radar?
Right. Yeah, thanks for that. Well, you know, I guess we need to take a step back and consider, you know, given the size and relative young age of Morehouse School of Medicine, we're approaching 50 years in our existence with a small footprint, faculty footprint, relatively. It's a, you know, graduate school, essentially. So we're a community-based medical school by definition, by our, you know, our mission. And in that regard, we've developed ways, and even more importantly, work to strategically partner with institutions and companies that are aligned with our mission and focus on advancing health equity. So imagine that, so within the last couple of years, with all of the political unrest, a lot of the diversity and inclusion efforts in the country and in companies, several companies, many roads lead to Morehouse School of Medicine now. And when we work with, when we choose to partner, it's not transactional in nature at all. In fact, we prefer more collaborative R&D partnerships or training partnerships that hopefully will create some intellectual property technologies, innovation. We can innovate together. So before anything's been etched out. And we also look to leverage the diversity of our students, unique patient population and demographics, our brand is a trusted brand, and obviously the intellectual capital of our students and faculty, with that expertise on health equity. Now, one of the I guess the innovation build effort I think I could focus on is in the precision medicine space and partnering with that. And we're looking for companies that possibly have AI machine learning capabilities that can help us accelerate some of the biotech, med tech, or even health tech innovations that are going to be important to mitigate some of the health disparities that we've been focused on since our existence. So in that regard, we partner with both public and private entities. I guess GRA is public, APDC public, private, Georgia Bio, of course, but also we have a lot of partnership with NIH, and then some federal contracting organizations as well with that work with the Defense Health Agency and NIH. We also have a formal partnership with Common Spirit. It's the largest private health system in the country. And they're in 21 different states. So, we hope to bring health equity to them, and in that regard, we envision a new research partner as well. And, no telling what type of discoveries we're going to come up with. And I guess I wanted to end and just briefly talk about, we also have to sustain things we may birth out of these partnerships. So, we work with, we're committed to companies that have been birthed from this, like Chinook Therapeutics and AccuHealth, Newmark, and DevMar Manufacturing, which is really interesting. We're now applying for EPA registration for biohazardous safety product that, gosh, 3 years ago, I had no idea that where it would take us. So we're looking forward to that. Thank you.
Right. Yeah. No, thanks for that. Thanks for that, James. It's interesting. You're saying that everyone has strong interest in what Morehouse is doing. I was talking to Cyril Giuliani today with CDC earlier. And she specifically mentioned, hey, let's get on a call with Morehouse. And she's like, I know James really well. And she said, it's time for us to circle back around. We were talking about some stuff that they were some tech transfer stuff about moving some stuff out of the laboratories, and so definitely we'll circle back around offline on that. So good job on that. But James, you were mentioning a couple things, and as I segue to Chris here, you mentioned some stuff about collaboration and government and all of that, and kind of navigating that. So Chris, I have a question for you. Given the innovation ecosystem is dominated by the triadic collaborations and involving universities, industry, and government, with institutional arrangements that promote silo breaking and multidisciplinary research. So what does the model look like at your university for proving innovation collaboration? Because sometimes it's a delicate balance between all of this, right? Getting money from the state, getting money from your donors, and getting money from government, and then navigating policy all in the process of this. And how does that help or impede your innovation efforts?
Well, that's a great question. Those relationships matter a great deal. Growing them matters, nurturing them matters. But what's also important in that dynamic is being a good partner. And for example, we work closely with DoD. We work closely with DOE, the National Lab over in Savannah River. We work, well, of course, NIH, other agencies. But we also work with a lot of corporate partners here and around the world. I mean, in the last few days, I've been on the phone or on email with people from Poland and Germany, the UK, other places. And it's a very connected kind of a world. So our job, I think, to break down those silos you mentioned is to be a good partner. And I think what that means is try to figure out what we can do that's beneficial to others, along with what they can do for us, but to
Right.
think of it more mutually as opposed to what I want. How about what we want? What can we do together that's going to be better than us operating alone?
Right.
Now, I'm going to just bounce back for a second to say
Sure.
we're a smaller research university than, say, UGA or Georgia Tech or Emory, and a little bit smaller than Georgia State, although we're heading towards 200 million fast, Cliff. Watch out.
Watch out there, Cliff.
It's coming. It's coming.
Right.
But one of the things we found too, as part of making that ecosystem work, which that's an overused word, doesn't mean much these days, but
Right.
we'll still use it,
Right.
is actually developing partnerships with people who become, I'll call it the usual cast.
Mhm.
I mean, today, if we have someone interested in a possible startup, I've already got 3 or 4 people I'm going to have them talking to quickly to get some smarts about business, some smarts about customer discovery, some smarts about the basics of scaling, regulatory, you name it. And so even though we're a smaller setting, we really leverage a lot with a lot of people who work collaboratively. And in fact, I would go so far as to say, we really, in some ways, you can't always see the boundaries because we work so collectively, collaboratively, and seamlessly that sometimes it just looks like one big team. And that's including people in government, industry, private sector, service providers, you name it.
Right.
But we also do the same thing at AU, and that's a cultural thing I wanted to highlight. Some
Right.
universities, and I'm not pointing out specifics, in Georgia certainly, but some universities, you really do feel silos. I
Right.
think a place like AU, because we're smaller, we've grown with sort of a different mentality, which is, I mean, my work with, say, sponsored research or legal or finance or environmental health or what have you, it's very seamless because we all work together. We're a small team. We know each other. We collaborate. We're friends. We're neighbors, all that kind of stuff. We also do sit in, smaller than UGA, a 14,000 square foot wet lab incubator situation that we live in and run right in the middle of our campus, our research enterprise. But I'll come back to your question. I think a key is that we strive to be relevant with our industry partners by, as noted earlier by Ian, helping them solve problems, also by Courtney, helping them solve problems with government by helping them solve problems, because especially when you collaborate with the feds, they're not trying to encourage innovation in an abstract form.
Right.
They're trying to solve a problem. And in fact, as one of my Army friends said not long ago, look, dude, I don't want you just to go off and do research. I want
Right.
you to help get something to the point I can procure it.
Right. Right. No, that's so good. And for a second there, Chris was talking about, what they want, what he wants. Man, it just, I had a flashback of the business model canvas, the partnership side, right? You got to think about what they want, what you want, and kind of what that actually looks like. And, and I heard a lot of you talk about, just really putting support around faculty, and just making sure that you're their champion and that they have good resources available to them. And when I begin to think about this, and actually this question, Cliff, was something that we had a conversation about a while ago about how to bring faculty up to speed, because at Emory and Georgia State, it was different levels of research and different levels of commercialization, and so everyone has a different understanding of what commercialization is. And so I have a question for you. Do you think Georgia State emphasizes academic research commercialization to faculty? If so, what are your university's internal and external efforts to support faculty looking to commercialize their life science related research?
Sure. Always happy to talk about our efforts underway here at GSU or Georgia State. I've been told I should go by Georgia State all the time, not GSU,
Right.
because there is Georgia Southern on the bottom end of our
Right.
state. Anyway, yeah, I think like a lot of places, we have pockets of faculty who are very, very well versed in sort of serial entrepreneurs, serial innovators. They know what to do. They've got a rhythm. All of that is great. And then we have the rest of our faculty who may have some knowledge, may not, may be completely unaware. And I think one of the unique things about GSU and sort of looking at this question is that unlike Augusta or Morehouse or UGA or Emory or Tech, right, we are not a medical school, we are not an engineering school, we do not have a vet program, we do not have an agricultural program, yet we do a sizable amount of research. Where is that research? A lot of those areas that we are experts in are places that don't directly lend themselves sometimes to a clear commercialization pathway. And so I think a lot of our efforts around engaging faculty are focused on the fact that we have a lot of different kinds of faculty than some of the others on this panel. And so our approach has really been to look and work with our faculty and just build general excitement and enthusiasm around being innovative, being creative, and working with different partners. I mean, that's a lot of what it's been since I joined GSU. And some of that's formal in looking at the reward structure for our faculty and is it reasonable in our IP policy and all those sort of nuts and bolts things. But a lot of it is also very informal, right? We've been really on a kick lately to recognize the contributions of our faculty, thinking that, if we recognize them and do it, somewhat publicly, more faculty will be interested in getting engaged, right? And we can dispel some misconceptions around what it's like to work with a company or do a startup or license your IP. We can handle all of that, but we want to just get them asking questions. And so we've done a couple, very simple things. One is every time we receive a new invention disclosure, we contact the dean of the corresponding college and say, hey, look at who you have in your staff, right? Look who's sitting in that college. They're doing really innovative, really cool, creative things. Right. Recognize them in that way. We have a whole program around National Inventors Day and formally recognizing our faculty and with buy-in from sort of the top administration at the university. That means it makes it more meaningful than just Cliff saying, hey, thank you. That sort of effort. And then, we also have sort of a monthly, newsletter that goes out on campus and recognizing faculty who either had a license or have had a patent that's issued in the last month or so. And again, just sort of recognizing and shining a little bit of a light on them so that, again, it sort of emphasizes the value that those activities bring to their research enterprise and bring to the institution as a whole. And ultimately where we want to go is that faculty don't think about commercialization and innovation efforts as separate from the rest of their research enterprise. It's all one and the same. It's all one big continuum. It all plays a role. It all fits together. They're not different things and they're not scary. It can all work well. So again, a lot of that's what we've been doing. Some of the other things we've been doing to encourage our faculty is, again, addressing directly the problem that we need a pipeline of new innovations coming to our office and coming to our team. Otherwise, we don't get to work with all these other great people in our ecosystem. So how do we build that? Well, we've been on a road show around campus to departments, to colleges, to other groups. We've got sort of a 20-minute presentation, the who, what, when, where, why, and how of working with the TTO. Very basic, but really just giving them, sort of the information they need and saying, again, the TTO is not scary. We're not a compliance office necessarily like some of the other units. Come talk to us. We're here to serve. We want to help you. And I think that's starting to really see some payout. We're seeing new faculty. We track people who are serial disclosures versus new disclosures, and we're trying to use that again to say, are these efforts having any benefit, or should we look at doing something different? I could talk for quite a while, but I think I'll stop there. Those are some of the efforts we have underway, and I think they're universal. I think this whole panel, we'd all sit there and say, "Yep, those are the kind of things that we need to do to keep our faculty engaged."
Yeah, no, that's really good, Cliff. I think, when you talk about building out this life science innovation ecosystem and just really building it out, it requires a lot of things, right? Collaboration, working with other universities, working with industry. But one thing I didn't hear any of you all mention, and just as we kind of move into kind of like the open question and just more of a open dialogue here, I didn't hear you talk about private investment and working with private equity, and how does that come alongside in helping some of the faculty? Because I know writing grants is a difficult thing, and either you have skill set in it or you don't, or you spend an enormous amount of money helping people to help you write that. But sitting on the other side, hearing NIH and NSF talk about how we need more faculty to take advantage of like PFI. There's all this other funding that's available, and just kind of wondering, how are you measuring, or any of you all feel free to answer this question, how are you intersecting your faculty with these resources or preparing them for that investment? I know Biolocity is uniquely positioned to do that, but then it becomes a capacity issue. So how are all of you being able to do that, or are you even doing that?
I can jump in here from Biolocity perspective.
Mhm.
So yes, so one of the things that we actually do track which typically would be ROI, but leveraging whatever funding we give to follow-on funding, whether that's SBIR grants or NIH funded things. But we do track equity from venture funding or angel funding or any of more of that private funding. So one of our main goals within Biolocity, at least for the funded projects, is to get our technologies to that next value inflection point, which is typically raising additional money. Depending on where they are in the life cycle of their innovation, some folks are more primed to go the SBIR route versus getting venture funding. But what we try to do is make those connections throughout our process. So we have an oversight committee that is comprised of serial entrepreneurs, faculty members, folks from venture, folks from more of the strategy side of things. And we're able to work with them while we're working with our project teams to get that feedback. So we'll have presentations put together and say, hey, if I was to go out to XVC, what would the reaction be? What are the questions I should be anticipating? Because right now we're the friendly audience.
Right.
And so we try to get them prepared for that next step. We have folks who reach out to us. Beautiful things like this conference. I've had folks reach out to me through the platform to say, hey, we specifically are looking for strategic opportunities within the university system. So we try to play that advocate for those teams, but also prepare those teams to be their own advocate.
Right. Yeah. Another avenue that I would strongly encourage, and I know, Ian, I know you participate and you're familiar with I-Corps. I think it's probably one of the best kept secrets. And James has been through I-Corps. It's a great program, right? I sit at the intersection of being an instructor and a mentor in the I-Corps program, and to give faculty that early $50,000 infusion for 7 weeks to do a landscape to see, is there really a market for this? And to have that money come into the university with some additional funding associated to that. And obviously it has to be university IP. It has to come from, your university, because all funding goes to it because it comes in like a grant. So I'm curious, I know University of Georgia, but Georgia State or Augusta, are you participating, or have you participated or encouraged any of your faculty to participate in any I-Corps program? Either Chris or Cliff.
I'll chime in and say we do encourage our faculty to participate in I-Corps. We also encourage them to participate when Emory was hosting its Kauffman program, participate in that program, which is like I-Corps light in some ways. but a good overview. We also, thank you, Courtney, encourage our faculty to participate in the commercialization series offered by Biolocity, because it's something that we can partner with Biolocity on, but that we can't offer ourselves necessarily at this moment, nor do we have the need to offer a whole program ourselves. So we do, but I think I want to just mention, like, the one group that's also sort of missing here, right, is the role of the Georgia Research Alliance. We can all sit here and we all work with GRA, and that's one of the best, components of our partners at GRA, is their ability to provide some of that coaching, some of that feedback to our earliest of early ideas, and get the sort of train in our faculty member, or whoever the team is, get the train in their mind moving on the right track towards commercialization, as opposed to whatever they may have in mind, which could be the right track, could be the wrong track, we don't know. So I just want to make sure we recognize the important part that they play in our ecosystem.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I absolutely second that. I've gotten the chance to know quite a few of the folks over at GRA, and yeah, they are definitely the best kept quiet secret here in Georgia, for sure, and behind a lot of amazing projects that have come out of Georgia and out of our universities as well too. So
Chris,
I guess
you want to chime in?
Yeah, go ahead.
Sure. GRA is a terrific resource. When I came here from out of state, we had GRA Envy. It is a great, great resource. It really is. Right. But I was going to plug in another point here too, and that is sometimes it's all about a matter of who's the messenger.
Right.
I mean, for example, I've been an investor at a fairly institutional level, and yet in a lot of cases, I'm not the best messenger to our faculty. And so what we'll do is rope in people who are serially successful, cashed out, or otherwise been successful in entrepreneurial ventures, and get them kind of bringing some of that insight back. Right. Because what we want to do is be sure if our innovators wanted to take a possible startup to an angel or later a VC, that they go in with their best foot forward, which means don't go in too early. Go in when you're ready, go in when it's right. Don't go in and stumble. I mean, one of the more common discussions I'll have with people is, if you're in doubt, wait, get GRA money, get non-dilutive funding, obviously friends and family, the usual bootstrapping, reach into your pocket, because guess what, as the investor thinker, I'm going to want to see you did that anyway. I mean, I always tell people, and they always kind of freak, but look, one of the best indicators of the credibility of your plan, besides all the usual stuff you'll see in a textbook, is, are you putting your own money into the company? Right. Because that tells me you're committed, and that's wearing my old investor hat. But the point is about messengers. Sometimes it's important for me to point someone to another resource, not because I couldn't give them an accurate and thoughtful answer, but because it's just better coming from somebody else. Mm-hmm. But part of our operating as partners is doing the reverse for them too. I mean, occasionally there are people on the screen who've called me and said, hey, would you talk to so-and-so and kind of help them understand X? Well, that's because it's different voices, different people, and that's part of our larger community that makes Georgia so strong.
Right. No, that's a great advice and a great point. The reason I asked that question is because, obviously, being at Tech, we see a lot of startups that are in this space and working with them. And Panoramic VC came out with their Southeast report on all investment activities. And of course, FinTech was obviously at the top, and SaaS was number 2, but bio and life science was number 3, right? But then you hear a lot of companies that are in this ecosystem that says, well, I don't find a lot of investors. Yeah, we know a GRA or a Biolocity, but we don't really find any of those investors. And I think that's important to think about that, and what does that look like in being able to build out our ecosystem. And so, it's a good point. What's the messenger? But is anyone else, Ian or James, are you doing or have any efforts around building out the investment ecosystem to support some of those later stage activities that are coming out of your universities?
Yeah, one of the areas that we are just expanding into is putting together all of the contacts we have with industry in one place. Mm-hmm. And that's, there's everything there, from anything philanthropic, but also into sponsored research and into problem solving. Right. So that's now in one office of business engagement, so that we can actually understand our potential customers, partners, whatever, in a much better way.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yes.
If
Go ahead.
I
Jay.
could, yeah, I wanted to add briefly, couple of things. And I wanted to publicly acknowledge and thank Nakia for his help at Morehouse School of Medicine. We've stood up a completely online innovation core course. And eventually I want to find a way to deploy it to some of our residents and faculty, right? So imagine everyone trained in innovation. So what we do in terms of, again, it's more of that community outreach approach. We have, over 4,000 or 5,000 alum, residents and students and graduate students that, and a handful of them are in VC, in the VC space. So we'll tap them and they'll, twist our arm a little bit and, not asking for money, of course, but at least to vet some of the technology, but only after it's gone through that I-Core approach. And in fact, even one better, I'm starting to implement any invention disclosure that crosses my desk the next step is that product market fit in a rigorous evaluation with that methodology.
Yeah, absolutely. And, and all of you, man, we've got, one of the biggest champions in the state of Georgia, Maria, we've got to talk about how impactful Georgia Bio has been to all of your organizations and support, right? From relationships to bringing in investors, to bringing in partners, all of the things that they bring in. So talk a little bit about how Georgia Bio has been so important as your universities have navigated these life science waters. Okay, let me start calling on.
I'll follow up, right? Yeah, just in continuing. I've been at this off and on for 20 years, but the last 10 years, after I came back and set up our tech transfer office, so I've seen changes in leadership at GRA and Georgia Bio, and I've been so happy, and it's like a breath of fresh air to see Maria's leadership come to display. I think just the simple dialogue we're having now may not have occurred 5-10 years ago, right?
Right.
So this is really exciting, and Georgia Bio is going to be important for our continued success and to really stimulate the growth in our ecosystem and connect us so we can leverage, and partner and collaborate like we're supposed to be doing.
Yeah, and we've even got a lot of Morehouse students in the mentoring program right now at Georgia Bio. We've got quite a few that are signed up and taking advantage of it from just that meeting we had a few months ago. So yeah, go. Anyone else? Chris, Ann, Courtney?
I'll chime in.
One of the things.
Oh, go ahead, Ian. No, go ahead.
Okay, well, just one of the things I would say is that for us, having, one of the issues about Athens is it can, as far as we're concerned, Atlanta's only 60 miles away, but as far as Atlanta's concerned, Athens is about 450 miles off. And one of the things that's very helpful is having someone an organization that can actually help us connect into that far off land. Because yes, we do generate a lot of ideas. We've got a lot of research and we have a lot of successes in talking to industry, but we need more. And we're not going to duplicate what happens at Georgia Bio. We just want to use Georgia Bio to help us with all those connections.
Yeah, absolutely. Go ahead, Cliff.
Sure. I maybe just wrap it up on the Georgia Bio note is one of the things I really appreciate about Georgia Bio, and I think they bring, is just this sense of community that they bring to all of us. And that extends to asking Georgia Bio directly for things, contacts, whatever it might be, whatever our needs might be for the particular project that we're working on. But I think one of the key points about Georgia in general is that I'm pretty confident I can pick up the phone and call anybody else who's on this meeting with me and a bunch of other people who are not in this panel and ask questions and look for, insights and never get turned down. It is such a warm and opening community. And I think that that is a key part of what Georgia Bio helps bring for us in the life sciences here.
Right. I agree. I think, Courtney, I think when we got introduced, we had 1 or 2 conversations. And then I think our 4th conversation is, hey, you guys are going to work on a grant together, right? And then it just kind of fell apart, right? We just kind of, but that's all good. I guess that's just part of the network though, right?
I have one more thing.
Sure.
Yeah, Georgia Bio has been, I think, actually the majority of people on this call I met because of Georgia Bio, because it is a great connector, not only internally, but I think the only other thing I would add to the comments that have already been said is they are a great place to even magnify the things that we're doing internally, not only from like a university perspective. I can email Christina or Maria and say, hey, can you promote this event? And it's in the BioBeat that week, or hey, I'm looking for X person, but they also amplify our message externally outside of Georgia as well, which I think is an invaluable resource. So being a part of conversations like this, and then just being a part of a state that has Georgia Bio is invaluable.
All right. Thank you for that, Courtney. And so, certainly I got to throw my plug in there. Definitely thanking Maria and Christina and the whole Georgia Bio crew for not only giving me the opportunity to build out a bio innovation lab for Georgia Bio, excited about being able to help contribute to stand-up programming to support all of you in this ecosystem. So as we come to a close here, there's this thing that we always tell students or faculty that are going through I-Corps when they're doing interviews, to ask this one last question. Is there anything I should have asked you that I did not ask you? I see Ed over there laughing. So if there's anything that I should have asked you that I did not ask you, or if there's anything that you guys would like to say each 30-second as we close, that would be amazing. And thank you for your time here. So I will go on my order of my screen: Cliff, Chris, Ann, Courtney, then James, and then I'll make some closing remarks and we'll close this thing out.
I think just, the sort of wrap up question I always like is, what's one piece of advice? And maybe it's a similar question. And so, I think in working at the intersection of industry, government, and academia, one of the key things to get out of the way really quickly is understanding where the parties are coming from and what drives them. And I think that's the key to any relationship. It's sort of like, let's not just throw a contract over or do this or do that. Let's actually sit down and talk about what this relationship between us is going to be like. I think that leads to success and helps avoid a whole lot of mistakes that can happen elsewhere. And so I'll just sort of leave it with that.
Thank you, Cliff. Chris?
Sure, and I'll only mention that I think notoriety tends to come outside in, which is, I think, for example, my university is more famous in Germany than in the US, more famous in the US than in Georgia, more famous in Georgia than in Augusta. And I think that's true for most universities. It's outside in. It seems counterintuitive. That's how it works. Right. And I think part of what not only Georgia Bio does wonderfully is to help amplify that message in Georgia, bringing it back home. But I think we all do this together and try to amplify the good news of research universities and their collaboration with industry and trying to make a real difference. So we got to bring it home, folks, and let's keep doing it.
Right. Ian?
Yeah, I would actually expand even further on that, Chris. I think one of the big things that it's easy not to do is to celebrate. Everybody, I've done 2 startups. You just get used to whether it's those punches in the face or the roadblocks or whatever, and they're always the thing that occupy your mind. But actually, there are many, many, many successes on the path of doing startups or commercialization. And I think it's really important that we help people celebrate those successes as they happen and encourage people to keep going, because it can get kind of hard in those trenches.
Courtney?
I think my final thought would be just to reemphasize something that was brought up all throughout this call, which was around collaboration and network. I mean, just in this conversation, you could hear all of these different institutions and how they collaborated on given projects. But even though you're within an institution, we have our own networks that we can connect out to all of these other groups, and our life science ecosystem is very strong. So I think we are here to support, and if we don't know it, we'll find someone who does.
That's what's up. James? Oh, you're on mute.
Yeah, I'm not sure how much I could add to that, but just to follow up with, it is important that we celebrate our accomplishments. A lot of success stories out of Georgia, and it should tell the rest of the world that we're open for business and to partner to move future innovations to the market. So please reach out.
All right. And thank you everyone for listening to this panel. It has been truly impactful. I've learned a lot of things that I did not know from all these wonderful Georgia leaders here. And hopefully you will find ways to connect. If you're industry, please reach out to these universities. If you're investors, please reach out to these universities. Or if you've got any companies or faculty or students from these universities, please support these universities. It is a great ecosystem. I am happy to be a part of it and a servant to it. So Cliff, Chris, Ann, Courtney, and James, thank you so much for your time today. And till next time.
Thank you.
Thank you.